And then for today, let's just set a new location. So this is one new record. And then for an item, let's select one of the items in the item master. So let's just pick the first one. And then let's create stock balance in Accpac. So just bear with me for a while. This is just so that we can show you something very clear. So I can, wait, the location is correct, yep, post. So this is receiving 100 in location new. And then going back to the setup, let me just create a new network, which I'll call new. Inside is location new. And then in the item planning table, for this item, I'll create a new record for new. Let's make my maximum stock to be just, okay, 1,000. Minimum stock, let's say 250. For the rest, we can just leave as is. And then let me create a new forecast. And then let's say we put a demand for April 30 for that item in location new. Let's make it 150. And then for May 1, actually let's make it July 1 for the same item, new, 200. Okay? So this is just to simulate what it would look like. And then what I can do, I'll just do a new run. So I'm calling out my new network, the forecast new, the calendar existing. I want to include stock, PO, bombs, PR, SO, and kits, and then just trigger a plan. So the scope actually is now looking at just location new. And the output of the plan is something like this. So if I go into item A103 for new network, you would see that the system is able to see that we have 100 on hand. So this is your current stock balance. The system is being pushed to maintain a minimum stock of 250 pieces. Minimum order is 100, order multiple is 25, lead time is 5, and then looking at the plan, the system is recognizing that we are below minimum. So it's actually telling us that we have a pre-planned action. So we need to somehow source 150 more to meet our ideal stock balance. And then looking forward, the system recognized that we have two demands coming from forecast new for 150 and 200. So what the system is doing is it's making recommendations on how to meet those demands. So you can have here a plan order. Notice it's a action for create PO for 150 and then another one for 200. Notice how the due date corresponds to the forecast demand date. And then there's a column called document date, which actually corresponds to your lead time. So for me to receive something on July 1, I need to buy by June 25. So the date, the time in between is 5 days, only working day. Was that clear?
Yes.
Okay. So this was a very basic plan generated by the system. And just to highlight how it integrates with Sage 300, I'll just do a quick sales order. So this is now an OE sales order. And then for location new, and then my expected ship date, let's just make it May 26, for example, for that item. So location new, when is it due, and then the quantity being ordered. So let's say I have a 500 coming from this sales order. Okay. Deliver by, yep, changed it. Let's make this May 27. Expected shipment date is later than delivery by date. Okay, it's very strict. let's finish that. May 27. Okay, you have order 68. And then again, just to show how it's connecting, I'll go into the PO and just assume, let's say that I have a PO for this vendor, and then for the same item to be received, how many? So let's say I have 150, or let's make it 200. Cost doesn't matter. And then let's just set an arrival date. Expected arrival date. Let's say it's due on March 10. Okay, and post. So now we have a PO 31 in the system. And if we go back now to the plan and regenerate, what we want to show you is how the system reacts to that. So in our case now, for the same item, you can see the system recognized that we have a PO 31, which is good for 200 pieces. Notice that the action now is trying to expedite. So if we could receive it earlier, better for us because we're trying to meet minimum stock. At the same time, the system recognized another type of demand, which is a usage SO. So that's your sales order for 500 pieces. And you can see that the planned orders are now reacting to meet this demand. Okay, it's clear?
Yes. I might be skipping ahead a little bit, but in our manufacturing process, we're mixing chemicals that are being packaged in different size pouches. So, you know, one might be 1 ounce, another might be 2 ounce, another would be 20 ounce. But when we look at it, we do a batch of, say, 1,000 gallons. Can it, you know, we do 1,000 gallons and then we split it between those items. But the purchase size, the batch size is 1,000. Is this able to handle so that it knows that batch size of the liquid as a component, or is that too deep?
Okay, so I think if I understand correctly, you're referring to bombs with varying requirements of the same item, correct? And then you're talking of a size that you want to order, so it's like a minimum order quantity. Let's say 100 kilos or 100 liters is in one container, and you don't want to buy less than 100 liters, correct?
Right.
So notice that in our,
It's a little bit different than that. What I'm assuming is you're going to have this 1,000-gallon vat, right? And that's what you're going to mix in.
Right.
Okay. So the real question, Terrence, is I might have 3 distinct finished good item numbers, let's say, and one of the raw material components, the liquid, in common to all 3 of those items, but the container size of each of those 3 items is different. Where I think the question is could the system help us optimize what count of each of those 3 items we should manufacture out of that 1,000-gallon vat?
To fully consume the vat?
Yes, yes.
No. It won't do it that way. It's actually going to look at the demand of the finished good item and then calculate the total requirement for the component. And then that quantity, it will consider the vat you're referring to is like a batch size. So we would force the manufacturing to use up, let's say, 1,000 liters or 1,000 kilos. So it will be reflected as an order. But the system won't be able to tell you that because I have this vat, you need to produce more of certain items. Was that what you meant?
I think it is, and what it will tell us is our real and forecasted demand of each of those items, and the total gallons that need to be in the recipe to fulfill what we have planned, and then we make a decision if for some reason there's an economy of making that size larger. We would need to make the decision how much more we want to build of those 3 items, let's say.
Yes. So the solution that we're looking at right now would help you with the first part. It will make sure that based on a certain projected demand, whether it's actual sales orders or MOs even, or sales forecast, you will have sufficient raw materials to produce them. So that part is covered. It's the second step where you were saying that since I already have this extra stock of raw material, could I produce more of certain items? That part the logic doesn't really consider. Right. So what would happen is you need to do a second run, because once you see the plan and you realize that, for example, this particular component will end up with a stock quantity more than my minimum stock. And then for you, that's you recognize the opportunity loss and you want to consume that.
Right.
Right. So yes. So first part is no problem. The second part, the planner needs to get involved. We could come up with reports to highlight those excess stocks that you want to maximize. And based on the BOM, you could calculate. Actually, the problem is how to optimize it. Which product to produce, the system doesn't really have a control or the logic to make sense of it.
Okay. Okay.
But what you were describing is just, if I now go into IC, just in case you haven't seen the BOM of IC yet, you would notice, for example, I have an item here with a BOM. So let's say, for example, this item. Here I could define a BOM, quantity needed, and then what you were describing earlier would be another item, for example, that uses the same material, maybe for a different quantity. So the BOMs would be able to take care of that. And when I create a sales order with, let's say, a requirement for certain items, let's say for this item, let's just create an example. I would create a sales order. This is assuming that I'm restricted to using IC only with no manufacturing order module. Let me just quickly show you. And then this is now the item, the BOM involved for new location. And then, okay, those dates are fine. Let's just create a demand. And then post, that problem again, deliver by 422. So we have now an order 69. And then what I can do now is, again, rerun the plan. This time, of course, we want to look at the BOM. So if we look at, let's say, an inquiry by BOM for network new for the item in question, and then let's say a plan up to June, you can see that I'm now looking at the plan in summary from a BOM point of view. So I'm looking at this parent item where underneath I have this raw materials. And then I could see that for this particular item, I have a requirement of 123. And because of that, I need to produce. And if I go back now to my raw material, A1103, and open it, there is now a usage BOM for this quantity. So this was, I think, what Mark was highlighting earlier. So the BOM, the demand for an item could be a sales order. So I'm selling this component to my customer, or it could be coming from a BOM. So it's actually used by another product, and I have to issue it out at a later time. Okay?
Okay.
And then for the planning, of course, the next step is just to execute the plan. So we have a generate PR function to do that. So PR refers to purchase requisition. So I could call out my new network, set a time fence. So let's say I only want to implement up to May 31. It's to be received in this location. These are now the items that I want to purchase. So from the planning point of view, the planner just selects which ones he wants to implement. He can change dates if he wants to. He can even change quantities. And then clicking on post just creates a requisition. So this is fed back into the purchase module of Sage, where it's now a requisition awaiting conversion to a PO. So this is the output of our plan. And then in Sage PO, you could easily create POs from requisitions. So if you have defined your default vendors with their price lists and everything, a batch of purchase requests could be automatically converted to 10 or 100 POs based on specific item vendor combination. Okay. For the purchase planning, is it clear? Any questions?
Yes. When you do have multiple vendors assigned to a particular item, Terrence, is the purchase order module in total control of determining which of those vendors we place the order through in the create requisition function?
Yes, yes. For the planning module, we actually end at the purchase request portion. So from a planner point of view, it doesn't really matter who I buy from. I just need to know what item, when, how much. So that's the scope of plan. And then we rely fully on Sage POs to handle the conversion to a purchase order.
Okay.
But I know why you're asking that question. So maybe for you, there is some value to dividing the order to multiple vendors, like 70% to this vendor, 30% to another vendor. But there's no automation for that. The only one that is in the standard modules would be the create PO from requisition, and typically you select the default vendor, which is vendor 1.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So if that part is clear, what I'll do next is just quickly show you how I try to differentiate the IC BOM and IC assembly function with that of manufacturing order. Is that okay?